Chicago is Gotham. And there is a problem in Gotham, and that is the corruption and the bankruptcy that the city could be facing off against. And I don't think bankruptcy is going to get us out of it. Let's go ahead and move on to our next segment right here.
One day before Chicago Public Schools presents a balanced budget, top CPS officials, including its interim CEO, meets with the mayor's office. All insist all funding options are still on the table. Chicago Public Schools interim CEO Macklin King, Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates, and top mayoral officials held meetings at City Hall today to strategize together on how to get more education money from Springfield. But it won't be in time to close this year's huge CPS budget gap, one that is close to $1 billion.
I can tell you that we're still continuing to work on the budget and that all options are on the table. I made that clear since I've joined CPS, and that's to consider all of the expenses that CPS has as a district.
But time is running out. CPS must present a balanced budget tomorrow to the school board. King admitted today the process has made her anxious.
It is constant conversations with our teams, looking through our budget, looking for savings, looking for where opportunities to protect the critical investment that the district has already made.
Sources say the budget does not include a controversial pension payment that the mayor was hoping CPS would pay for. Sources also say the budget does not include a short-term loan, two options that former CPS CEO Pedro Martinez refused to include, and it cost him his job. But the mayor insists all options are still being considered, including the pension payment and loan.
As a former public school teacher, I don't want any cuts in the classroom, but all of our options, have to be available for the board.
CPS's budget team will present a balanced budget to the school board tomorrow morning. Then the school board has until August 28th to vote on it. Classes begin next Monday.
It gets worse, a lot worse, because there's no way we can get out of this. And one of the many causes of this budget crisis, and unfortunately I could see this leading to more problems, is an increase in violence. And what I mean by violence, it has to deal with the fact that Chicago was one of the many leading cities fighting to be a sanctuary city. We never had the budget or the plans necessary to take care of many of the migrants who were coming into Chicago. This also led a pathway in which you would have people, such as corporations or developers, take advantage of some wonderful budgets that the city then stepped aside. And in turn, this impacted a lot of people. I remember when we asked the question to a lot of these activists and organizers who now out of the blue are now back because Trump is in office. These same activists and organizers that we asked during Trump's first term, hey, is there a plan for this? Hey, do we have the resources necessary to provide care for a lot of these migrants coming in here? Will there be a problem impacting other resources and programs for Chicagoans? Will this impact other city areas that are struggling financially? And always, my favorite one of them all. In fact, I'll stand up for this one. It's still burnt in my mind because some of these activists, I know real activists, for example, Misty Winston. Okay, there we go. That's an example of an activist. Okay. I know RB Ham. I just mentioned him on the show. He's another good one. He's part of those Canadian truck drivers, standing up for free speech. He was on the Jimmy Dore show. That's a real activist. A lot of these cosplaying activists who say they care about the migrants don't really care. They never did. The Chicago activist community leaves much to be desired for because I think all it is about feel-good points. And I remember, oh my God, DSA. Oh, and it's very fascinating to see how DSA voted in regards towards their own policies. That's just another branch of the Democrat Party, in my opinion. But here's the thing. I remember this one because there were a lot of times when we asked these activists and organizers, hey, is there a plan to take care of the migrants? Hey, will there be a problem with this, that, and the other? We were told we were racist, or we didn't know what we were talking about, or there was a plan, but they spoke so long, it was a word salad, it would put AOC to shame. But my favorite one was this. I'm going to act as Kit Cabello. Hopefully you can hear me. All right. This all sounds good on paper, but what are we really going to do to really make sure that everything will be financially sound, because there's a real big problem of bringing all these people in, and in turn, it could cause more problems, thus dividing the progressive activist communities here in Chicago, and in turn causing more problems. I mean, will Chicago be able to provide for itself? And I'd ask this question. My favorite one is this. They looked at me. I just walked away. Just like a smug turnaround. And there were like 4 or like 5 of them like standing, looking at me, dead-eyed like cows. So smug. So smug. All those activists were all talking big and tough. Some of them had the audacity to even say to us, "Oh, you just want to interview us for clout." And like, shut up. Like, no. You know, a lot of those people, you know, we just wanted to say like, hey, there's this group doing some good. And then they all disappeared in 2020. And now they're all back. 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 All right. And, you know, okay, maybe I'm being too mean. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm very sorry. I am so sorry. Just sometimes I get a little mad. I get a little mad when I think about just the past a little bit. But hey, I want to play this video because this was from July, because the problem was far worse. I mean, the video I played previously was before that.
Chicago Public Schools just announced it's laying off more than 1,400 school-based employees. This includes 432 teachers and 677 special ed classroom assistants. CPS says this is part of its annual workforce planning and budgeting process. Historically, the district says more than 80% of impacted employees have secured new positions within CPS prior to the start of the school year. It's not known if the current $734 million budget deficit will impact that rehiring process. Chicago Public Schools.
But let's talk about our mayor, because Chicago is broke. Or is it at? Yeah, you know what? It's actually, you know what? Hey guys, the city is in a very precarious spot. And here's him responding. Hold on. Sorry, I have to reset it up again because the audio was not connecting. Here's him responding about Donald Trump calling him out.
How did you feel when Donald Trump called you incompetent? What did you feel?
All right, he just addressed this. Thanks.
Please answer that question. If you would.
Okay, fine. Since you are begging, I do believe that Donald Trump is intimidated. I think.
Okay, no interruptions.
So let me just answer that. I do appreciate you begging. So I would just say it like this, that the president has always been intimidated by the intellectual prowess of Black men. And so, of course, he would speak in those petite and puerile terms because he's small.
How did you feel when?
Yes, well, don't call Trump small, but also, hey, the mayor also responded to the idea of federal forces, or is it at the National Guard, being employed in the city of Chicago.
You talked earlier about how you don't believe that Donald Trump has the right to send the National Guard here. But what are your plans if the president moves ahead on such plans to try to have a police force of some kind in Chicago from the national government? How are you, is it just court action? Like, what are you planning to do if that happens?
Well, look, the governor and I, we're on the same page here, right? And so, legal action, will be on the table. But I want to make something perfectly clear. These individuals are not being sent to cities to police cities because they're not trained to police. These are soldiers. They don't go through the training that our police officers go through. In fact, it is quite hypocritical on the part of the president to even suggest such a move, and it is destabilizing for the city of Washington, D.C. Look, crime is down in Chicago. Crime is down. There is more work for us to do, but he wasn't adamant about ensuring that the $830 million of funding that he took away from community violence prevention and intervention. You know, these are individuals that are on the front line in these particular communities, preventing crime, preventing retaliation from taking place, building relationships. I know these individuals. I sit with them. We spend time with them.
I let this video play out. I wasn't going to pause it. This is a mayor who's afraid. And however, I know there's problems with the Chicago Police Department, but there's no way the CPD is going to be working with the mayor's administration. There's already too much a heavy divide between Mayor Brandon Johnson and many political powers in Chicago. That's including the Chicago Police Department, aldermen, and all the other elected officials. Mayor Brandon Johnson will be alone. Mark my words, this is going to be a one-term mayor. The city is far too broke. The city was in no position to be a sanctuary city. The city right now is struggling with schools shutting down, homes being shut down, apartments costing too much to live in, small businesses being shut down, unchecked corruption, unchecked brutality. The city is in some serious, dire trouble. And in my opinion, Chicago will be the first one on the list. There are problems in this city. And what better way for Donald? And I remember giving this warning to a lot of liberals, especially when they were jumping up for joy about all the legal problems Donald Trump was facing off against. I warned a lot of people saying, hey, you better hope that these prosecutors going against Trump have their I's dotted and their T's crossed, because if he gets his chance to escape and get his revenge, those doors will close in on you. And there were a lot of Chicago and Illinois lawmakers, you know, causing some problems. Now, I'm all for free speech. I'm all for being criticizing of a politician here and there, but Trump's got some vendetta against Chicago lawmakers and Illinois lawmakers. We're first. I would be surprised. I would be shocked if we are not the first city. If New York City or Philadelphia or Los Angeles, I'll be surprised with the amount of, well, words that were exchanged by J.B. Pritzker to Trump, and of course, Mayor Brandon Johnson to Trump. And of all the mayors, Brandon Johnson is the most susceptible. I want to pull this up here, and I think I found a new soundbite. I got to add in my new sound bites, because this right here perfectly breaks down not only Mayor Brandon Johnson, but anyone that has an approval rating of what?
Your approval rating is 6.6%. Your approval rating is 6.6%. Your approval rating is 6.6%. Your approval rating is 6.6%.
That's his approval rating. He's the weakest mayor. And in regards towards Chicago and its problems, in the off chance good friend of the show, Jimmy Dore from Chicago, is watching this, or anyone else from Chicago from my viewing audience, this is a video. It's not related to the schools. It's not related to the crime, but it's related to our water. Chicago decided to change our water pipes. Huh, really? I'm surprised that the city's doing that, because most of the time, you, the landlord or the homeowner, have to fix the pipe. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Look at that. There's lead in Chicago's drinking water. That's the pipe. That's what the people were getting their water from. Okay? And BW, if COVID ran against Mayor Johnson, COVID would win. Yes, absolutely. Chicago is in some trouble, and there's no way out of it. There's no way to sugarcoat it. This city is on a nice edge. We're in some trouble here, folks. And I wish it was something different. I remember warning a lot of people about the problems facing Chicago. But it doesn't look like we're going to be getting out of this one. And for our politicians that have led us into this disaster, you can't get us out of it, can you? We're screwed. I'm very fearful that Chicago could end up as a dead city.